3 seconds. That was all Sarah Mitchell had. "Excuse me, sir." Her voice stayed steady, but her hand shook as she reached the table. The wine glass was already inches from his lips. Across from him, a man smiled too easily. Eyes sharp, breath held. Sarah saw it then. A flick of fingers. A shadow of liquid dissolving into red wine. No one else noticed. No one ever noticed waitresses like her. Rain beat against the windows of a luxury restaurant where deals were worth more than her yearly income. Crystal lights. Soft laughter. Power sitting comfortably at the table. And Sarah, 26, worn shoes, a single mother counting tips for rent, standing between a billionaire and a silent death. If she spoke, she'd be fired. If she was wrong, her life would unravel. If she did nothing, a man would die in front of her eyes. Her heart slammed. Lily's face flashed in her mind. 6 years old. Waiting at home. The billionaire lifted the glass. Sarah moved. Water crashed. Gasps followed. Silence swallowed the room. The man stared at her. Not angry, not confused, calculating. He knew. And in that look, Sarah felt it. She hadn't just interrupted a dinner. She had stepped into a world where people disappear for less. This wasn't kindness. It was survival. What happened after that spill changed her life, and his, forever. If you want the full story, don't click away. Subscribe now to Canada's Heartfelt Tales, because the next choice Sarah makes is even more dangerous. The room froze after Sarah spilled the water, but the silence didn't end when Daniel Cross set his glass aside. It followed her through the rest of her shift, thick and heavy, like every pair of eyes in that private dining room was waiting for her to crack. She didn't. She couldn't. Lily needed her steady. Lily needed her whole. But inside, panic twisted through every breath. When the last guest left, she retreated to the service corridor, leaning against the wall as her hands finally trembled openly. The head server brushed past her. "Rough night," he muttered. She forced a nod. "Just a spill," he snorted. "On the wealthiest man in the building." Just a spill. His words weren't cruel, just careless. But they reminded her of the reality she lived in. People like her had no room for mistakes. No room for suspicion. No room for danger. Yet danger was exactly what had walked into her life. Outside, the rain thickened into a cold curtain as she hurried to the subway. Her reflection flashed across the wet train window. Dark circles under her eyes, hair coming loose from its tie, exhaustion clinging to her like a second uniform. She whispered to herself, "Just get home. Just breathe." But nothing felt normal. Not after what she saw. That night she barely slept. Every sound in the hallway made her sit upright. Every shift of the building made her heart kick hard. She checked the locks 3 times, then a 4th. She checked on Lily twice as many times as that. When dawn finally cut through the blinds, it felt like a relief and a warning all at once. The next day, at her lunch shift, her coworker Mia noticed her distraction. "You look like you saw a ghost," Mia said. Sarah hesitated. "Something happened at Romano's. Bad. Worse than bad. I think someone tried to hurt a guest." Mia blinked hard. "Did you tell management?" "And say what?" "That a billionaire almost got poisoned and I knocked water on him to stop it. They'd fire me before I finished the sentence." Mia leaned closer. "You have to be careful. People with money. Their problems aren't like ours. They can swallow you whole." Sarah knew. That was what scared her. By evening, paranoia had sharpened into certainty. The same gray coat on her morning train appeared again. A black sedan idled across from her building. A man pretended to check mailboxes he didn't have keys for. And then the fake detective called. After Daniel warned her, after the knock on her door at 3 in the morning, after watching a shadow walk away from her apartment, fear took its place beside her like an unwelcome companion. Every sound became a threat. Every footstep felt too close. When Daniel's car arrived before dawn, she didn't look back at her apartment. She held Lily's hand tight, whispering, "We're okay. Mommy's here." But saying it felt like trying to convince herself. The safe house was nothing she expected. Quiet, warm, sunlight pooling over polished floors. A kitchen stocked with fresh groceries. A guest room with soft blankets and framed photos of landscapes. Mountains, oceans, places she'd never been. Daniel met them at the porch like he was afraid to scare them. "You're both safe now," he said. Sarah studied him. Gone was the stoic billionaire from the restaurant. His voice held something human, guilt maybe. Fear. Gratitude. She couldn't tell. Inside, Lily perked up immediately. "Do we get to stay here?" "For a little while," Daniel answered gently. "Just until things calm down." "Is there breakfast?" Daniel smiled. "There can be." Watching him make her daughter laugh was disorienting. Sarah wasn't used to powerful people kneeling to children, asking what kind of pancakes they liked. But the illusion of safety didn't last. That afternoon, 2 of Daniel's security agents briefed him quietly near the back window. The tension in their stiff posture made Sarah's stomach coil. Daniel approached her soon after. "They found something," he said. "About Philip." "No. About the people behind him." Her breath caught. "You're not just collateral damage to them, Sarah. They sent someone to your building last night. They won't stop unless we stop them." She hated how small her voice sounded. "How?" "By exposing them." For days, the house shifted between calm and crisis. Lily played with puzzles in the guest room while Sarah sat at the kitchen table listening to security reports, coded messages, encrypted emails, financial trails leading to a name Sarah had never heard before. Victor Langford. Langford wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in ways that rewrote rules. A man who built empires on threats whispered behind closed doors. A man who believed people like Sarah existed to stay out of his way. He was, as Daniel put it, the kind of man who thinks consequences are for other people. And he had ordered the hit. The night Daniel told her, she froze halfway through washing dishes. "Why would he want you gone?" she asked. "Because I refused to approve a project he designed," Daniel said. "A project built on illegal land deals, human displacement, and political favors. So he tried to kill you." Daniel's jaw clenched. To him, it was just business. Sarah gripped the sink's edge. People like him don't understand what they destroy. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. He understands. He just doesn't care. For the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah felt something burn beneath her fear, anger. A week later, everything exploded. She was helping Lily with a coloring book when shouts erupted outside. Security rushed through the hallway. Daniel appeared in the doorway, urgency tightening every movement. "Sarah, get Lily. Stay behind me." "What's happening?" she whispered. "Langford's men followed us. They're here." Sarah gathered her daughter, clutching her close as they moved quickly through the safe house. Gunmetal voices barked orders outside. The crunch of boots on gravel echoed like a threat spun into sound. Inside, every emotion struck her at once. Fear, fury, exhaustion, a fierce protectiveness she didn't know she possessed. "Why won't they stop?" she whispered. "They think you know too much," Daniel answered. "They think you're a problem. What am I supposed to do?" He glanced at her. "Survive. That's what you've always done." Security pushed them into a reinforced room where screens flickered with camera feeds. On the monitors, men in black jackets moved across the lawn with purpose and arrogance. Sarah watched as one of them kicked at Daniel's garden fence, laughing like nothing around him mattered. Like no life mattered but his own. Something snapped inside her. "These people don't get to win," she whispered. Daniel met her eyes. "They won't." The confrontation outside lasted an hour, but it felt like a lifetime. When it ended, 2 of Langford's men were handcuffed and furious. The rest fled into the woods. Police sirens wailed in the distance. But the victory wasn't enough. Not yet. Daniel gathered his documents, his recordings, his proof, everything he'd collected in the shadows. He handed Sarah a folder. "Your testimony matters," he said. "You saw what happened. You saw Philip drop the poison." Her stomach tightened. "If I speak out, they'll come after us again. If you don't," Daniel said softly, "they'll keep doing this to others." That night, Sarah stayed awake long after Lily slept. She walked through the quiet halls of the safe house, hearing echoes of her past. Every job she'd taken, every moment she'd been dismissed or ignored because of her uniform, her income, her quietness. For most of her life, she'd been treated as invisible. Now her voice could expose a man who hurt people with impunity. And for the first time she understood her power. 3 days later, the courtroom was standing room only. Cameras lined the hall. Reporters scribbled notes furiously as Daniel presented irrefutable evidence. Emails, bank transfers, recordings, every secret Langford hid now forced into the light. And then Sarah stepped forward. The room fell silent as she took the stand. She spoke clearly, recounting the moment Philip tilted his hand over Daniel's wine glass. She described his body language, the vial, the tension, the way he watched her with suspicion. Langford's lawyers tried to tear her apart, attacking her background, her wages, her education, her status. "You're just a waitress," one sneered. Sarah didn't flinch. "I'm a mother. I'm a witness. And I saw your client try to kill a man." The courtroom erupted. Even the judge struggled to maintain order. By the end of the trial, Langford's empire collapsed beneath him. His allies scattered. His accounts were seized. And when the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, the crowd outside the courthouse roared. As police escorted him in handcuffs down the courthouse steps, Langford glared at Sarah with disbelief, as though he couldn't fathom being defeated by someone he considered beneath him. She didn't look away. Justice didn't erase the fear she'd lived through. But it restored something deeper, her sense of worth. Back at the safe house, Daniel approached her quietly. "You didn't just save my life," he said. "You ended his power." Sarah exhaled slowly. "No one should be above consequences. And because of you," Daniel said. "He isn't." Still, something lingered, something unfinished. Because while the verdict had been delivered, Sarah felt the story wasn't over. Not for her. Not for her daughter. Not for what this moment meant. And she sensed, deep in her bones, that the fallout from Langford's downfall would set off a chain reaction none of them were prepared for. Because when a man like Victor Langford falls, he doesn't fall quietly. And the ones who helped him rise aren't ready to disappear. That's where the real danger begins. When the courthouse doors finally closed behind her, Sarah stepped into the cool afternoon light and felt something she hadn't known in years. Quiet strength, steady and grounded. She had walked through fear, faced men who believed she didn't matter, and proved them wrong without raising her voice. Truth had done the heavy lifting. She had simply refused to disappear. Daniel joined her on the steps. No suits, no guards, just a man relieved to breathe freely again. "You realize," he said gently, "none of this would have ended the way it did without you." Sarah smiled, not proud but certain. "Maybe. But it started with a choice anyone could make." Lily rushed toward her, waving a drawing she'd made during the hearing. 3 simple figures holding hands beneath a sky she'd colored bright yellow. Sarah lifted her daughter and felt the world steady around her. After everything, hope still fit in small hands. As they walked away from the crowd, Sarah glanced back once. Justice didn't erase the past, but it illuminated the road ahead. She understood now that courage wasn't a dramatic gesture. It was persistence. It was truth spoken at the right moment. And it was choosing again and again not to shrink. The wind carried a single sheet of paper across the steps, Langford's discarded headline, tumbling end over end until it vanished into the street. A reminder of how quickly power built on deception can collapse. If this story moved you, please like, share, and help Canada's Heartfelt tales grow by hitting subscribe. The stories we tell matter, and so do you.